Yeah, we're recording now, by the way. But yeah, and I'll cut this part out. But the video,
You think? Maybe this is a good intro.
this podcast is off to a roaring start. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Power Platform Boost podcast. This is our pilot episode. We're really hoping you're going to enjoy this. And my name is Nick Dolman. I'm here with my co-host, Ulrike Akrebek. Did I get it this time?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, you did.
All right.
Great
So,
job. Yeah.
perfect. So a lot of you are probably listening to this and wondering, oh yeah, here's like yet another podcast on the Power Platform. So from our perspective, every week Microsoft releases a lot of new enhancements to Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. And I remember the days way back when we got updates to Dynamics CRM like once every couple of years. They would come out on a CD, and there really wasn't a lot of news. It was more of every time there was a Microsoft conference, it's like, when is the next version coming out? Well, today it's completely different. Software is being updated every week. And as technology professionals, it's our job to kind of stay on top of these updates, but it's really hard. And you can't be an expert on everything anymore. And even though we have our areas of expertise, just we need to know from a high level what's going on. And that's really tricky. And I don't know, I find that podcasts are a really great way to keep up on new information. Anytime I'm going to the gym, going for a car ride or something, it's having that audio news or audio updates of what's happening is a great way to keep on top of things. So, Oreki and I, we were discussing this last fall, and we thought one of the podcasts that we both really enjoyed, but unfortunately ended, was the Upcast that was hosted by Megan Walker and Lisa Crosby. And what I liked about this podcast is Megan and Lisa, they took a very unique approach and had weekly conversations about all the new and exciting features and developments in the world of business applications. But they also had some broader discussions around life, technology, and careers, and was really entertaining to listen to. And found it was a great way to keep up on what was new, what was coming in the world Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. And I think both of us were kind of disappointed that podcast wrapped up and ended, but we also understood it required a lot of work. And for Lisa and Megan, who they do a lot of other things in the community. Lisa has an amazing YouTube channel, and Megan has like an amazing blog on a lot of things. So it's, for them, it was, I could tell it's a lot of work, but it was still really sad to see that go. And the other thing that we do to keep on top of things is we're also big fans of the Power Platform Weekly and the Power Platform Developers weekly newsletters that come into our mailboxes once every week. And these are, if you haven't subscribed, definitely go and do that. They provide a great summary of all the news and announcements and other community content to keep on top of it. But even with these newsletters and even spending the time to try to read through these, sometimes I know I get a little bit behind. And we kind of thought it would be really cool to have an audio version to kind of maybe, enhance these a little bit, help them out, help us out, and to kind of go through some of these news articles. So that's something that we're also hoping with this podcast. So this is where our podcast comes in. We wanted to produce the type of podcast that we would want to listen to, and we're really hoping that you will as well. We're not going to replace the Up podcast. Those shoes are way too big to fill. I think we'll try our best. I think we're going to put together something we hope that's really quality, and be able to, another way for the community to get an audio overview of what's happening in the Power Platform and from our own unique perspectives, from our own different parts of the world. So we're not just going to read the news. We're also going to have some discussions about some of these new features and concepts. So if you're a fan of podcasts, whether you're going on a commute, going for a run, going to the gym, just even winding down for the evening, you just want to listen to my voice to put you to sleep, we can do that too. We're hoping you really enjoy the Power Platform Boost podcast. This is something we know it's going to be an incredible challenge, and I think we're definitely both up to it. up for it. We're going to take this seriously, but we also want to have some fun, and we hope you're going to come along for the ride. So definitely provide us feedback. Tell us what you think, and looking forward to a good run of this podcast. We're just going to keep going, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever have any feedback for either one of us or the podcast in general, then you can reach us on any of the social platforms. You'll see the name of the podcast, the Platform Boost podcast, everywhere for the next weeks. And of course, you know both of us from the social media platforms. Reach us whenever you want. And yeah, nice.
Awesome. So we're
rolling.
We are rolling. This podcast is happening. We've been planning this for a couple of weeks now, and I'm excited that we're finally recording.
For people that don't know us, maybe we should just have a brief introduction into how we got here. Nick, you started before the internet went live. How did you end up here? Who are you?
Who am I?
Briefly.
Briefly, because we have a lot of stuff to cover in our first episode. This isn't, so for those of you who think you've signed on for a Joe Rogan 3-hour podcast, this is not going to be that. We're going to try to keep it at a decent time. So how did I get here in like 2 minutes or less? So I went to school for electronics engineering, got into software development. From there, became a system administrator. Got introduced to something called Dynamics CS Plus, or Great Plains was the name of the company. Great Plains got bought by Microsoft. Of course, I was like an MCSE for Windows NT 4, like everybody was in 1999. And from there, got to start working a little bit with something called Great Plains Siebel Front Office. Siebel was a CRM software in the late 90s. Great Plains had an arrangement with them to rebrand one of their mid-market applications. It was horrific to work with, but then part of that, at that time, Great Plains got bought by Microsoft. Microsoft came out with the software called CRM version 1. I dove right into that, began to implement that at the company I was working for at the time, and learned a lot about, and at that time, CRM version 1 is your version 0 of Dataverse and the Power Platform, essentially. I know there's other pieces that got pulled in along the way. I kind of went from there. CRM 3 came out. I formed my own company. We just implemented CRM 3 and version 4 to 2011, either for direct clients or also kind of white labeled it. In 2013, don't want to get too deep into it, but had a bit of a burnout. So took the company. We actually joined up with a larger organization that kind of settled me down, kind of got me focused on what I like doing, working the technology. I went off again on my own in 2018 to be, again, doing some small projects, but also a trainer, instructor. It was before I actually went off again. I became a Microsoft MVP. I began blogging a lot about Dynamics 365, Power Platform, of course, ADX Studio Portals, because I was in how I got into portals. I think a lot of people have heard this story before. Lost or won a rock, paper, scissors on a big project that I was going to take care of the portal portion of it. And of course, when you work for a consulting company, as soon as you would take on one project in one particular area, you've become the de facto expert in that area. So from there, I actually did quite a few other portal projects. And of course, when Microsoft bought ADX Studio, got into a lot more portal projects as well. Developed some training with this, some other content, and I still know other stuff. I know that was one of the alternate names of this podcast. Nick knows other things, and then just a little over a year ago, I joined Microsoft as a senior content developer, and I'm responsible for preparing a lot of the content for the learn.microsoft.com, specifically around Power Pages, but I do get pulled in a few other areas as well. Again, Dick knows other things, and there's some other new exciting features coming up that I'm aware of that I've worked on documentation for. So that's how career-wise I ended up here in terms of this particular podcast. I did have a podcast before called Refresh the Cache. Nicholas Hayduke and George Dubinsky, they've taken that and they're continuing on with this. But Ulrike and I talked about, when we get together, we see each other like once a year, twice a year, maybe. We just start talking about Power Platform, and we thought this could make an awesome podcast or discussions. So I think that's the best way how we ended up here. So tell me about you.
Well, thanks. So just wanted to pinpoint that. So when people say that they've been working with Dataverse for 30 years, and people kind of think, well, how's that possible? It's 5 years old. This is how, right? Because it's built upon something that is old and very tested and tried and evolved, from something that was created a long time ago, right? Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes for Power Pages as well. I think the last 6 months, I've been doing nothing more else than say, okay, Power Pages, yeah, it's marketing, right? That's the new part. The thing under the hood, it's 6-7 years old now, and even older from ADX Studio point of view. So it's not new. It's a marketing news kind of thing, and it's what Microsoft like to do with this platform, especially. I think it's a lot of marketing changes more than anything. But yeah, so I have a very different background from you. I'm not a Dynamics developer at all. I still need help, setting up the Dynamics environments from scratch when it comes to the plugins and advanced stuff. I do front end. That's what I do. And as I said earlier, I created my first website when I was 14. I went to school, to university. I have a bachelor's in communication and multimedia. I've done audio, I've done video, I've done so many other things than web and front end. But when I started working, by some chance, much like you and the Power Pages thing, I started working with SharePoint. And no one ever teaches you SharePoint in school, right? So when I became a SharePoint developer, and I was working setting up intranets for 5 years. And then I went on maternity leave. And then when I came back, they moved SharePoint to the cloud, and no one wanted to brand SharePoint anymore. So I was out of a job. And by 6 months or something, Microsoft bought ADX Studio. And I thought, wow, this is a web product within the Microsoft platform or hemisphere. And then, that's kind of a thing for me. Picked it up, sold it to the first customer I could come across that was interested, and off we went on a 4-year project. Opened my eyes, uphill struggle, but then I fell in love with it. It was perfect fit for me and my background, and it allows me to do front-end stuff in a very contained space for a very small, often very small, segment of people, which allows me to really customize that user experience, and that's what I love to do. And so, and you were my mentor into the MVP system. So, and that's how I got to know you. And now you're not allowed to be an MVP anymore. So just trying to, talking about shoes and walking behind someone, trying to fill your shoes in the MVP community, which is never going to happen. You're still very much a premium community champion in my world, even though you're a Microsoft employee now. So, and we still do a lot of community stuff together, and feel this podcast is just a natural evolvement of that collaboration that we've had for a couple of years already.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny because I was just, as we were planning this podcast, I was going through some of the emails that, I thought, when exactly did we, start communicating? And there was, I think I found the first email you sent me. You were asking me a question on something within in Power Apps portals, and it's sort of like, we kind of went from there. And embarrassingly, I think because I do get, over the years I have gotten requests, and I think I gave you a bit of advice, but then I think I also said, and open a support ticket, which is sometimes my default. Okay, I don't have a ton of time, so go this route. But I think it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And then back then there wasn't a lot of community content at all. We had the ADX Studio documentation, and that was probably it. So I was just searching so hard for someone to be, someone to ask questions and someone to tell me stuff. And I think this is also one of the things that I just love to see. So we met in February at a hackathon here in Oslo, where I could actually see you standing beside someone who'd never seen Power Pages before. And just those 10 minutes of that uphill struggle that actually took me like a year, but having you there beside him, and that developer just, after those 10, 15 minutes, he was off and he knew what to do. And that, big milestone or threshold, he was over it, and he was just into the product. And that's so cool to see. And I hope we can probably be that enabler for someone. That's really cool.
That's what the community is all about. It's helping each other out, because I've learned so many things from other community members and yourself as well. Like me, I can barely spell CSS. So some of your posts and presentations on how to make a portal look nice has been incredibly invaluable to me. And then also, like, even in my job now within the team, it's sort of like, someone's, we're kind of collaborating. I said, oh, check out this blog post by Ulrika. She got this sorted out. So
thank
cool.
you.
I think for everybody listening, look forward to future Power Platform boosts, and looking forward to hearing feedback, what people think, what can we do? What do you want to hear? What do you want to look for?
Definitely. Can't wait. And if you have a tip of the week or something that you discovered that you think maybe not everyone else knows about, then send us a message and let us know, and we'll talk about it on the next episode.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Great.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Power Platform Boost podcast. Check out our show notes for links to resources we chatted about on today's episode. And be sure to follow us on your favorite social media platform, except for TikTok, as we are too old to figure it out. Also, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. Hope you'll join us again next time for your boost of Power Platform news.